What are the different types of marketing that you're going to do for your book? The first step one is you're going to essentially do social media and you're going to push to Amazon. Do you remember why we do personal marketing on Amazon with, by the way, the right keywords, right category, right subcategory, and you also want to pre-order. This is a game. The game that you're doing is you're going to use Amazon for authority. And the marketing that you're going to do right away is you can be like Book Daddy podcast, you can do social media, you can ask friends, you can do a couple blogs, that sort of thing. Just the basics. You don't have to overthink this. You're just doing the basics. Because if you remember, if you do the right categories, how many books do you have to sell for that first day to become a bestseller on average? About 20, exactly. It depends on the category. There's actually categories, if you're like, let's say, oh, I don't know, Pacific Northwest vegan gardening book or something, it's probably like 2. If you're in business, it's like 1,000. But if you're in some sub niche leadership for baseball or something, it probably 10 to 20, something like that. If you're in fantasy, it's 1,000. If you're in steampunk, outer space, young adult fiction fantasy, it's probably 20, unless there's some hot book in that category like recently. Everyone understand? You don't have to do a ton of crazy marketing to get 20 people to purchase it. But you do a little bit of marketing, we do a little bit of marketing for you. You become an Amazon bestseller because you're gaming the system in the right way. Are you going to become a millionaire off of 20 books? No, you're going to make 30 bucks. You're like, wait, why was that important? What's going on? Now you are a #1 Amazon bestseller. How many #1 Amazon bestsellers do you know? How many people are #1 Amazon? Like you just go on the street and just ask a bunch of people. Like how many? If you ask 100 people, it's gonna be 0, is my guess. If you ask 1,000 people, maybe 1, but probably maybe not. Honestly, I've met a lot of people I'm in a weird situation because I know a lot of authors, but most people don't know. If you ask my wife, like, hey, how many of your people in your network are like #1 Amazon bestsellers? The answer is 0. Like everyone she's ever met in her life is, think about that. Everyone you've ever met in your life. 0 of them are #1 bestsellers, right? So it's a very rare thing. Now you have this really rare thing where you're not just like one of a million people where you're thinking, oh, Mr. Publisher or Mr. Agent or Mrs. Social Media person or Mrs. Blog Host, will you please do me a favor and let me on your show? No, that's not your vibe. Your vibe is like, hey, I'm a #1 bestseller. My book is crushing. I'd be great for your audience. We should chat. Or if you're running ads or you're doing social media, you're like, hey, join the many people that have already purchased the #1 Amazon bestseller. That's blah, blah, blah. You have this energy to it. This is marketing. But when you have social proof and you have authority, then it's very easy to get other people on board with you. And those people who are on board with you, if they have audiences or they have friends or they have a network of people, all of a sudden they're more likely to share your book with their people. So this is called attention arbitrage. This is like what Gary Vee talks about. You have attention arbitrage. Basically, there's a bunch of people that have a lot of attention in your niche, people that are interested in your book, which could be very specific. It could be like surgeons who live in California, or it could be like everyone who's ever had a loss. That's a big audience. The other one's a smaller audience, but nonetheless, you have people out there that have spent years and decades sometimes building up an audience, social proof, to give them value. And the problem that they have, and if you remember this from our previous lesson, the problem that they have is that they run out of content ideas. Have you ever tried to write like a newsletter? I write a daily newsletter. I feel like I know a lot and I read a lot and I'm always learning something new. To write a new original thought every day is exhausting. And what's a lot easier than coming up with my own thoughts constantly is to interview someone else. And then I can use their thoughts. They're the expert. I'm just asking them questions. I let them talk. And now my audience gets a bunch of value. So what you're trying to do with the Amazon bestseller is get as many people that have attention to now trust you very quickly. And you want to go on like 100 podcasts. Every local bookstore, if you say, hey, I'm a #1 Amazon bestseller, I'd like to do an event at your location, they will say yes. If you go, every local library, if you say, hey, I'm a #1 Amazon bestseller and I'm a local writer, I'd love to do an event at your location, all of them will say yes because they don't know #1 Amazon bestsellers. You're a unicorn. You reach out to 200 podcasts, 50 to 100 of them will have you on as a guest. And so now, even if only 1,000 people per podcast listen to that, all of a sudden you just got 50,000, 100,000 people listening to you. Imagine giving a talk. Like I went to the University of Michigan and the football stadium there is over 100,000 people. Imagine giving a talk in front of 100,000 people. It's actually harder to give a talk to 20 people than it is to give a talk to 5,000 people. Because the 20 people, you feel if two of them are not that interested and one of them is falling asleep, if you're like, oh man, I'm not doing very good. But if you're talking to 10,000 people and 300 of them are snoring, you don't even know because it's just too many people. It's just a blob. You can't even comprehend how many people it is. My point is, if you're talking to 100,000 people about whatever, about your book, about the story, about whatever you learned, about your expertise, whatever it may be, people are going to love it. The content creator is going to love it because they don't have to do all this work. But at the end, there's this magic thing that's going to happen. And what they're going to say is, Helen, thank you so much for coming on. Where can people get in touch? If people want to read the book, like where should they reach out? And that is essentially everything that you're building is a conspiracy for that moment. The reason why you want to build a funnel and not send people to Amazon, Amazon is a tool to get people to book you in for attention arbitrage, essentially free marketing. That's the whole goal of Amazon. But once you have that, you don't want people to buy it on Amazon. Why? Because Amazon will only give you a couple bucks. Whereas if someone buys your book for 19 bucks, 24 bucks, maybe they buy the audiobook for 35 bucks. Now all of a sudden, the average person is giving you $30, $40. And if you can get 100 people to buy your book and you're sending to them and you get $30 or $40, all of a sudden, instead of you getting $200, you have $4,000. What changes, what happens to your business as an author if you made $4,000? You have everyone's emails and you have everyone's text messages. And they've actually opted in to get information from you. Essentially, what you're doing here, I know this is like a long explanation, but you're going to ask people, what you're going to get is you're going to get, if you send people to an author funnel and not, you're going to get community, you're going to make more money per sale. You're going to make upsells, which is going to be even more money. You may have a high ticket client, which that one high ticket client is going to give you even more, but you also have emails and texts for future launches. This is the advantage. And what you need is you need a couple upsells. We've already talked about this. And then you need a calendar to meet these people so that you build a good relationship with them. And some of them will buy something that's really expensive. And then what you do is you take that money and now you have a little bit of a budget to build this flow where you're putting money back into marketing on the top. And now it becomes this really cool virtuous cycle. That's the like big idea of building an author funnel. If you want the Amazon bestseller title, you really have to launch it like a 2.0 version. Or if it's fiction, you have to do like an updated version or a sequel. If it's nonfiction, it's very easy. You just do a 2.0 version. That's like most big business books or big self-development books, every 3 to 5 years, they'll come out with an updated version. And this is even more justified now because software changed, AI changed, social media changes, like everything changes so intensely with business that it justifies that. The short answer is you relaunch with a new version. 20 reviews is great, but it's not so much that if you do it right the next time, you can't get 30, 40, and then you're going to be like, oh yeah, I have this old version, and maybe you take it down eventually. I'm not trying to call you out, but this is like just a general thing in life, is that there's this thing called scarcity mindset, where you're holding on to the things you have, and you're like, oh, this is really important, when the answer is consistency for the next 20, 30 years. What you want to do is you want to build a system where you're launching a new book, let's say every 6 months or every year, and you're thinking 5 years, 10 years, 15 years, 20 years, I'm going to be a professional author. I'm going to make this a living versus, oh my God, it took all my energy and all my time. And I had this one thing and it did well, but this is my baby and I just want to sell more of my baby. Sometimes it requires an update. Think about like this with fashion. It's all the big fashion brands, everything from Nike and Zara or fancy couture stuff, they come out with new lines every 3 months. Think about that. You'd think Nike's figured out shoes. Nike, they make shoes. It's a good shoe. Why don't they just release the same one again? No, it's because they've released the next version of it. They have the 2025 version. They have the fall version. Just the same way that big companies are always coming up with Oreo. It's like every 3 months, Oreo has some new flavor. Or Pringles has some new flavor. Or Clorox bleach is now the wildflower purple version or whatever. Every company doesn't just have like outside of, no, even it's funny, like my wife always jokes with me. I put Tabasco on everything. I like hot sauce. But Tabasco's got all sorts of different flavors and they always come out with different flavors. My point is that don't be afraid if you have some intellectual property, whether it's a fictional world and characters that you've created, or the intellectual property of the system or your self-development or leadership or your style for solving some problem, whether it's emotional or business problem or social or whatever the problem is, you have some intellectual property. A book is intellectual property. You have either fictional world intellectual property or business nonfiction intellectual property. And has there something happen that could update that intellectual property? Or if it's fiction, just do a sequel or do your own fan fiction. Because it was just published in October. Yeah, it depends on the style. If it's nonfiction, you could add like a workbook. Think about the Surrounded by Idiots. Have you seen this book? Where it's like now it's surrounded by idiots in the workplace, surrounded by idiots in love, surrounded by narcissists, surrounded by whatever. You can take the idea and expand upon it in different archetypes. Or if you wrote a leadership book, it's like leadership for coaches, leadership for HR, leadership for moms, leadership for dads, leadership for kids. Like whatever the thing is, if it's fiction, you can always do a sequel. You can always do fan fiction from another character. You can do a prequel. And if it's nonfiction, just think what's a other version of it and build upon the intellectual property that you have. Like Chicken Soup for the Soul or The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. There's so many versions of that book. So that's the way I would think about it. I wouldn't necessarily just relaunch it. I would come up with something that's 1 + 1 = 3. And then what you're going to find is that a lot of people that buy the new book are going to want to buy the first book, which is also another way, if you have a funnel, that you could do really good bundling and that sort of thing, where you're like, hey, the first book is $19, but if you want both books, you can get 50% off and it's $29 for the bundle. So you actually have a competitive advantage. So a lot of times things that you think are like problems are actually, when thought about from a different perspective, they're actually good.